what I'm going to do today is basically the main theme of this presentation will be regarding the competence standards, competence for protected area personnel. And this is just hot off the press. This was presented in Hawaii 3 weeks ago. All right? So it's not my presentation, but it's from a working group. Maybe some of you are in this working group. I'm not too sure. It's a very large working group across the globe. Can you hear me, by the way? Yep. Yes. All right. So it's a large working group across the globe, which has taken 2 years to develop. And it's a very, very useful tool. So to go into all the details, we need maybe 1 or 2 days of workshop. So the idea today is like to get people being aware of it. All right? And crossing my fingers, I would hope that maybe by tomorrow evening, you people get together and say, hey, let's propose this. Let's propose, say, Malaysian protected areas to adopt the ICN PA competence standards and be the first in the world to adopt this. Because it's 3 weeks just ago. But it was not developed just recently, all right? These competence standards, there are a number of competence standards across the globe for marine protected areas, for a particular site, and so on. A bit of history here. The competence standards for this region was already developed by the former ASEAN Regional Center for Biodiversity Conservation, which later on evolved into ACB. You met Norman a while back. And can I have some of the lights off because I'm losing some of the faces here? It should be on the other side, I guess. Because I would like to give credit where credit is deserved. Thank you for more lights. All right, by the way, Justin. All right. Okay, you don't need to see my face. And I'm not going to read off the slides, okay? But I want to give credit where credit is deserved. So Mike was based in Los Baños before, working with ACB, and he and team and many of us from the ASEAN region helped establish the ASEAN competence standards. All right, this was years back. Some protected areas adopted it, some not. And later on, it was recognized at the global level, so it was further developed. And I was mentioning it took 2 years. So this is hot off the press, and this is something I would love the whole world to adopt. There's a lot of hard work gone into this, all right? And I'm working with one protected area in Laos, and we are already trying to align the training needs, personnel, so on, in line with these competence standards. Anyway, a bit of background here. So what is this competence standards all about? See, to achieve our goals in protected area, there are 3 areas which I've heard since morning, right? The knowledge, the skills, and I would like to replace attitude with personal qualities. It's because it's more than just attitudes, all right? Okay, now, like I mentioned, I'm going to jump very briefly just to make you aware of this competence. So within the protected area, we identified 4 major categories. All right? We identified 4 major categories. Again, I'm not going to go into all that. So 4 broad major categories. And within this, we identified a number of job descriptions, right? Work descriptions. 6 we've identified within the general management skills, all right, which you can read off. So 6 in the general management area, 7 in the applied protected area management, which many of us are doing, right, but not completely, all right. And at times when we do it, we don't do it too well. Why? Because these are the questions that we should always be asking. What's stopping us? Because early on we talk about we have the technology, we have the human resources, and so on, but why are we failing? Or why are we not achieving our goal? These competence standards help because it helps clearly identify what are job requirements, and I'll explain a bit later what's the story, what's the benefit of this to you all. And I'm talking about you sitting in the audience, the managers themselves. You don't have to wait for policies to come down because you can implement this already at your site. Right? You don't have to wait. So this is the beauty of this. Of course, it'd be good to have the support at the national level. And then 2 more competences. All right, so totally we got about 14, 15 competences. Now, if we jump to a particular competence, let's say we look at the biodiversity. All right, so within biodiversity, we have, this is at the, say, the second level of the job description. So within each, let's say, biodiversity, we have 1 to 10, 1 to 5, 1 to 11 job description. So these are things that we would require to do. And within this, we go in deeper. So what do you need to know? What competence do you need? So maybe surveying, these are the activities you need to do, and how do you go about doing it? So it's a set of guidelines, all right? And what's the background behind this? Again, in the first case, we're talking about the detail and scope of this, and then what are the knowledge requirements? So if you look at this, this is already guiding us in terms of capacity development needs. Not just capacity development needs. We always send out people for training needs assessment, or we hire consultants at high fee to do training needs assessment. But you as the protected area manager, you can already do this. And the cost for the consultant could actually go to your day-to-day management. See how much you save. A good consultant is about $1,500 US a day. That's a lot of money that can go to the on-the-ground operations. And this is something that the manager on the ground can do. So that's why I'm very excited about it. You can see from my face. All right? All right. Now, within this, again, not to read this, but just go for the top part, we have the different headings here that talk about what do we need. For each, we have code system, the type of definition, details, what supporting knowledge do you need, and so on and so on. All right, now I'm going to slow down and talk to you. Just now was high speed, you know. So the question is, why do we have so many competences? We mentioned about 300 over competences, all right? In the first talk itself, there was a mention about the modern protected area, modern challenges, right? So modern protected area, modern challenges require modern thinking, innovative thinking, creative thinking. And not just thinking, but actions. That's when innovation comes in, all right? So, but this is cutting across board across the globe. So it's something that not say you adopt, that's it. No, you adopt and adapt to your needs. Because I still strongly believe that the approach should be highly localized. We talk about, say, Orang Asli. There's so many groups of Orang Asli. Or the same group, the same ethnic background in different geographical areas may have different beliefs or different practices or different subsistence strategies. So the solution can be global, the guideline can be global, but approach should be localized. And who knows better than the people on the ground? This is where you come in. All right? Then there was another question. Why not put the term ranger and so on? See, in different countries, they may not call ranger. In Laos, for example, the ranger would be referred to as the technician. All right? In South Asia, in Bangladesh and India, they call them something else. Right? So different terms. So that's why they came up with some generic title for all these key job expectation. All right? So again, here is an emphasis. It is a tool. Adopt and adapt. A tool that the manager or the deputy manager, all right, can apply tomorrow. All right? But I would love to see, honestly, I would love to see that at the end of this conference, maybe propose to adopt, because I know you can't adopt, but propose to adopt. This is what the protected area managers see, and we feel it's useful for us. We'd like to propose that Malaysia adopt. And if you do adopt it, then IUCN will come in from headquarters. They will assist you, all right? And they will highlight this. You get the name, maybe you get some technical support and so on. All right, so let's look at what I want to spend more time on. How does it help you? Briefly, I've touched. Now, I want a ranger. What will be the competence we have? We have never listed out. We say, minimum qualification, SPM. To be a manager, PhD. PhD what? Pizza Hut delivery? Right. You can have someone with a PhD and he knows nothing. Right? I've got a PhD, but doesn't mean that I can do work on the ground. See, we need certain competence. So the job description already tells you, okay, minimum qualification for this position, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? What do you need? And hey, what if I don't have that? It gives a clear career structure to the protected area staff, which I'm going to talk about in a while. Why is it important to have a clear career structure? Because no parent, Asian parent, is proud to say that my son works in a protected area, unless the son is the manager. Oh, he's with the monkeys and he's getting bitten by leeches. That's no job, right? My mother, till I was half a century old, asked me, when are you going to get a real job? Because still chasing after monkeys. All right. So here it identifies the training needs, it identifies the capacity development needs. Not say, hey, to fill this job, we need this particular competence, but we don't have, so we cannot acquire. No, that's not true. We already have people. So this is where you say, I have people, but the people that I have does not match the minimum competence for this particular job. So it tells me what I need to do at what level, all right? What training. So it's tailor-made. Who tailor-makes for you? Not the consultant. We don't need consultants anymore, all right? I'll be out of job. But we need the protected area manager at site A telling the higher level authority, saying that these are the training needs. Not because, hey, drone is exciting. Nice, you play drone, all right? That's what everybody wants. I want a GPS, I want a drone. We never used drones and GPS in the past, and we saved many more wildlife. We saved many more areas. All right, some of you belong to my generation. Think back to what you did in the past, all right? Okay, now, designing the courses. And we're talking about not only on-site courses, we're not talking about one-off training program. We could be talking about a series of training programs, or a series of capacity development training workshops and so on for a particular site. Or we could be talking about a regional level within the country, or regional level at maybe ASEAN, and so on. So now, who doesn't want to rise in life? Who doesn't want to have a goal in life? I'm a junior ranger for the rest of my life. No, I want to achieve something. So we're talking about certification. Or what about with some of these competences, you can actually, at the age of 40 or 50, go back to school and get a degree. So we're talking about synchronizing with educational institutions, right? This gives people motivation, gives a reason. I don't have a PhD, but I have the knowledge in ecology. So I want to convert that to a degree. Why can't I do it? If you design this in such a manner to suit you, you can, all right? So now, the same thing I was mentioning. You find a reason for yourself, you find a reason for your staff, you find a reason for your protected area. So we're talking about improving oneself. And when we say improving oneself, again, it boils down to the career structure. You must have a reason. Maybe this reason could be as simple as, hey, I get more benefits, financial benefits. That's good reason enough. My position here, junior ranger, okay, I get increment 5% per annum or whatever if I'm working very well, but there'll be a stage when it's stagnant. So why don't I become a senior ranger? But in the past, we select senior ranger on hazard manner. But here is standardizing. Somebody mentioned about world-class protected area. How can you have a world-class protected area when you don't have world-class personnel? All right. So, again, the tools that the competence allow you is basically also measuring. It gives you the analytical tool, how to measure the success or the performance. All right? This is what I was mentioning about, for people to be proud of their job. I have been to a number of protected areas in Southeast Asia, minus Myanmar, in South Asia and East Asia. Most often, leaving aside Singapore, most often, it's a job that people get thrown at. You could be in the national protected area, division or whatever, but you get sent to the protected area because you're not a nice guy, because you're dumb. You can't hold the pen properly, Right? So we send the worst people to take care of our gold mine. I can name you a few protected areas here in Malaysia. I've also worked in Malaysia, but I'm not going to do that. All right? This is something to think about. You get a guard that is deaf, dumb, blind to take care of your bank. It doesn't make sense at all. Right? So we're talking about raising the profile of the profession. Now, all the materials I talk about is easily available. It's now, the text itself is online, and I'm sure Justin is going to make available the slides to people, which you can immediately go on the link that I provide later on. So it tells you A, B, C, D. So you see what is good for you, what can be used, and so on. So you don't have to wait from the top management. You can decide. Tomorrow you go back, talk to your staff, and see what do we need, what do we need to do. All right? So soon they'll be available online, and if you should need, say, training in this, then why not contact the IUCN working group on this? I can give you his email address. I'm one of the working group. Maybe there's some Malaysians also work in the working group. All right, so here's the link to this, to some of this. And again, the slide will be available to you, so don't waste your time scribbling down. All right, before I came here, Justin, at the very last minute, typical of Justin, I'm complimenting, okay? Asked me, hey, can you say something about innovation and creativity? I said, that's not a problem. I've been creative from the day I was born, and I got punished for that all the time. All right, let's talk about creativity and innovation in protected area management. Now, everybody's excited about this. This is a very powerful tool. Instead of bombing cities and taking out lives, we're talking about saving. Right? It's a tool. Or we could look at something simpler, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Something very innovative. You don't have to wait. Right? What am I pointing at? I'm talking about co-management. Co-management patrolling. The team here comprise border police, border military, villagers who can barely read or write. They used to hold a pen maybe once a year. And because of this, they're holding pen at least for 10 days a month. That was the minimum requirement. All right? So, and the forestry staff. Forestry technician, that's what they call them in Laos. It can work, but people must have the motivation. And the motivation, again, is different across the target group. So this is where our role would be, to find out what's your motivation. Maybe your motivation is pride. Maybe your motivation is food security. Everyone has a desire. Even the business people. Don't treat the business people as enemies. We've already gone past that stage. We should start looking at businesses as potential partners, right? They are doing what they know best. They may not understand, but we've been always throwing bricks and bats at them. I think it's time we start approaching them, talking to them. So you might want to look further into this by Googling biodiversity and business. And I'm working on one project now in Laos again that talks about this. I'm dealing with biodiversity offset. It's not the solution, but it's the last step level in mitigation measures. All right, so many talks today talk about innovation also. So I'm going to list out some of the innovation that can be there. Not all, but some. Just be creative. Who's ever talk about conservation lotteries? People buy lottery. I want to get rich. I want to have a bigger car. I want to have a bigger wife, and so on. So why not conservation lotteries where the profits go into conservation? I don't know, each country, each state may have their rule and regulation. It may not apply in Malaysia, but I'm just throwing the ideas at you. All right? Local business. Somebody talked about businesses, corporates just now. All right? Communities. I'll tell more about communities tomorrow. Somebody talked about PES. So today, many of you, I think, are seeing a lot of the similar themes, which I think is fantastic. I'm very happy to see similar themes because I'm not alone then. Right? And people have already opened the floor for me. Now I'm going to deal with something very basic. Few times today we talk about humanizing protected areas. This is something I've seen, I would say Asian, I'm not saying whole of Asia, but Asian is very strong on relationship. I can come with the best logic, science logic, go to a person, explain this, explain that, but he or she may not accept it. But in Asia, we go by relationship. Even though it's something that he or she may not accept, but willing to compromise or advise me, hey, can we adjust this a bit? And this I found very successful in Laos, in working in Laos and Vietnam, because I spend more time there. It's all about relationship. We eat and drink, and a few other things. And then we talk shop. It was easy, because it was, how do we get across this obstacle? Rather than you pointing finger and I'm pointing finger on the other side of the table. All right? So, innovation again. People talk about awareness and so on, mobilizing the people who care. That's what I call them. But mobilizing people who care is getting them from passive to action. But these are the other group, the 95% of the global population. This is what we should be working hard also towards. Could be businesses, could be the public, and so on. Mobilizing people who don't care. How to get them to care? This would be the bigger challenge. Because here we're talking among us, all having the same common interest. We should be talking also to others who are having different interests and so on. Now, how does the role of innovation and creativity comes in protected area management? Now, when we talk about creativity, it arises from new or novel thinking. Then you get a new invention, or where we're talking about changing that creativity into action. Because I can be creative, but that's it. It ends there. But innovation is taking it a step further, or maybe a couple of steps further. I can think of a beautiful design in my mind, but creating that design, that's innovation. Now, why? The answer is something that I mentioned to you a couple of times today. All right? Why do we need innovation? Because we are doing badly. Let's be honest about it. This is one of the things that I've seen in a number of countries or a number of places I work, that is, we are not willing to acknowledge we have a problem. The moment you have acknowledged you have a problem, then the next step will be easy. You try to identify the problem, and then you proceed to solving the problem. But we're living in a self-denial mode, always switching off. So how do we achieve this? You. All right? You have to do it. Don't wait for someone to come around, your boss to come around. The ranger on the ground can be innovative, but maybe if he's not motivated enough, then you, as the protected area manager here, or the NGO here, got to talk to your people, motivate them, find ways, find their personal interest. It's time consuming. A lot of the objective, a lot of the goals are time consuming. We say we need to do this, we need to do that. And I've been to a number of conferences, and it was interesting to note that a lot of these major conferences, say 20 years later, they give the same recommendation. But within that gap of 20 years, what has happened? Nothing. Only set of recommendation. So I'll end my talk here very fast. How much more time do I have?
You're 5 minutes ahead of time.
Right, so can you give me that 5 minutes? I finished with my talk, but I'd like to say something.
Can I put the lights on?
I'm shy, but you can put the light on. Where's my rubbish? My scribble notes. Yeah, I need the light on. Now, there are some things I noticed this morning. Do I need the mic? Do I need the mic? Well, I know. That's a problem being a teacher, you know. We shout a lot. All right. Couple of things from since morning, some of things I mentioned, but I would like to again throw this to the audience, right? For you to help you maybe get a poor digestion over dinner. We talk about ecotourism several times, and I've seen this again in other parts of the world. Now, I cringe, honestly, personally, I cringe every time I hear the word ecotourism. Frequently, ecotourism is not delivered well, and it's giving ecotourism a bad name. One. So if you're going to do it well. All right? Two, ecotourism is not the only form of tourism that can save biodiversity. Mainstream ecotourism can also save. I'm talking about regular tourism. I'll give you an example from Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. All right? The natives, the indigenous communities, were going to the forest, going to the sea, destroying everything. Destroying in the sense that they were harvesting, free for all. But then the American tourists came in. What did the American tourists want? The sun, sea, surf, whatever. Or to get sunburn, basically, another S there. And the locals were so busy catering to the tourists that the forest was left intact. If you go to, what's the name of the city in Yucatan Peninsula? Come again?
Cancun.
Yes, that's the one. Cancun, you see alligators crossing the road. There'll be a signboard, be careful when you walk along this 5-foot path, crocs come out. Right? So that's just one example. Mainstream tourism. But then when we talk about mainstream tourism, somebody mentioned a key word today, responsible tourism. Sustainable tourism is something you want to achieve. You cannot say, oh, let's do sustainable tourism. You cannot. You want to achieve sustainable tourism. You do responsible tourism, all right, in all sectors. And ecotourism will be shall be delivered, but it should be elite. It should be special. It should be complying to the criteria. And the other thing that I noted down also, it was during Siwa's talk. Again, I'm not going to talk about that definition. Don't worry. Dr. Siwa mentioned no strong coordinating mechanism, no strong coordinating committee. I would like to throw again to you all. Why? Right? He's already identified the problem. But we don't solve problems until we get to the underlying reasons. And it's tough to get to the underlying reason. And a few other things that people mentioned was, one was CUZ, Control Use Zone. Laos has been doing it for over 20 years, and Laos is less developed than Malaysia. But some of these protected areas in Laos and Vietnam are progressing ahead of Malaysia, okay, not because of them themselves, but because these are lesser developed countries, they've been getting a lot of financial and technical assistance. So that's part of the reason. But there's no excuse for you to remain behind. All right? I may sound a bit blunt here, but that's basically it. Done, okay. So actually I got a whole list here, so he gave me the signal. All right, thank you so much.